Hey guys, we're back. It's been, I don't know, a couple weeks probably. I got some parts and I'm putting the heads back together. I'm actually on the last valve right now. I'm kind of checking their fit. So let me put you up here in the stand, show you what I'm doing. This is the outside of the head. This is the number 4 exhaust valve. Taking a Sharpie and tracing where the valve seals on the valve seat. Then take the particular valve that was in that cylinder. I have my little rack here. Find a little fine valve grinding compound to it. I think they were fine, but I'm going this far, I might as well check them. So a little bit of oil on the valve stem and drop it in the hole. We're using the stick, and it doesn't stick very well. The suction cup on the end, and it's kind of like you're starting a fire with it. So this valve lapping compound has a little bit of aggregate in it. It's silicone carbide, something like that. Stuff they make sandpaper out of. And some grease or something to carry it in. Put it on that seat. Like so. And it kind of polishes the two angles together. I don't know if you can see it, but we've got a nice clean spot now. And for the exhaust valve, that's supposed to be about 60 thousandths of an inch, and I can't say that I would argue that. And then you can look in here, wipe off the machinist Sharpie. Zoom me back in. And you can see where it did the same pattern in the cylinder, or in the head. And it's dull, and took it all off all the way around, so I'd say that's good. Get set up and we'll bring you back and we'll put some valves in this head. Okay, I don't own a valve spring compressor, but I made my own out of a jacked up C-clamp and a pipe coupling that I welded and machined off, welded a washer to, and welded another coupling to the bottom. So the way this works is we will start with number 4 exhaust. Take the valve out of the rack. Make sure it's good and clean. Shoot a little oil down the guide. Slide the valve in. Now, for that particular cylinder, it had this shim stack under it, and I measured all this, and I'm going to check the installed height when we're back together. So that goes on. They kept falling out, so I had to put them on the rack. Get the spring and the retainer. And then this is This is where I'm going to look kind of like an idiot because I don't have enough hands. Put the other end over the valve, slide the spring and the retainer on. Sure, this is a situation where the right tool would certainly make life a lot easier, but I don't have it. And I don't see the need to try to find it or purchase it when this works. It's just not pretty. Okay. That should be compressed enough. I'm not even sure if you can see this. Yeah, okay. Now, take the keeper, get it in there in the grooves. Hope like hell I don't drop it. Take the other one. And kind of nest it in there. They're good. I don't know if this matters. I put a drop of oil in there, kind of help them seat back off the spring. Go. Valves properly installed. Now we'll move on, just go down the head. That was number 4 exhaust. Then I'll measure the installed height when we're all done because I don't have any shims. There's not much I can do about it. The other head seemed pretty good. So, and then the I pulled them off, but the intake valves have seals on that'll go on underneath there. Alright. You don't want to watch me struggle with that 100 times for conceivably 100 minutes. I'll bring you back when that head's all installed and all put together anyway. Alright, so we're back and I installed some valve springs and checked some heights and did some measuring, and pretty much the manual calls for, got a little whiteboard action for you. They call for this height. This is my lovely art. But, so this is the head, valve spring, valve stem, valve retainer. They want an installed spring height of 0.161 inches intake, 0.159 exhaust. There's like 41 intake, 40.5 exhaust. I only have English measuring devices, so that's what I'm using. So I went through all that in I had to do a little bit of math to be able to measure that. So I came up, I did a bunch of that, wrote it down because I can't remember all that stuff. So when I got to the end, I kept all that stuff straight, and together on the little stand I made when we took it all apart. And there were a lot of shims all over the place, and I didn't pay a lot of attention. I just kept it together and put it back together, thinking the heads had been cut or something. But when I went back together and started measuring that installed height, they were not even close. So what I found in one of my manuals is it shows this installed height, and it says that there should be 2 spacers and a steel washer over each valve guide. The steel washer must be on top. So this thick steel washer, which right there is a steel washer, and then there's the shims, which are a lot thinner, and that's what you adjust your height with. So they want the pressure of the valve spring against the head pushing on the spring pushes on the shims, and the shims are against the head. Anyway, so that keeps from beating up your head. So I was measuring that stuff, and I was like not really, I was kind of close on the intakes. The exhaust on the number 1, 2 side were way short. The other side, it was all over the place. So I had not seen that thing in the other repair manual. The orange book doesn't show that, or I didn't find it. But you want the steel washer, and the shims to adjust your A height. Back to the whiteboard. So this is what I started out with. And plus, one of the number 3 intake didn't even have a shim. Only had one shim, had no washer. So that valve spring was pushing right against that shim. And so anyway, so number 1 intake had 2 of the steel pieces, which that steel piece belonged there. 4 shims. Number 1 exhaust had 1 steel and 8 shims. So anyway, by the time I got to number 3, I put it the way it was, and it measured out right. So I took everything back apart and kind of piled everything back up on the bench, and now I'm going back and setting those and measuring them and trying to set them correctly. Thus far, I am on, this is the 1-2 head, so this is number 1 cylinder. I have them finally where they're supposed to be. I think I need to remeasure, but I will go back and set I think I need to add a shim to number 1 intake, and then they'll be right. So anyway, I'm going to do some of that, and then I'll probably have to order some shims, I'm afraid. But I did end up with enough of the steel washers that it all matches up. So anyway, I will bring you back when I have some more information and something to show. I mean, you've already seen me put a valve in, so you don't need to see that again. All right, see you in a minute.